Do you have a jar of old pennies sitting in your closet right now? Or maybe a handful of loose change just rattling around in your car console? You might want to stop exactly what you're doing and go check them immediately. Most people think a penny is just 1 cent, barely worth the effort of bending over to pick it up off the sidewalk. But what if I told you that a single humble Lincoln wheat penny could be worth more than a luxury house? We are talking about absolute life-changing money here, folks. Some of these tiny copper treasures have actually sold for mind-blowing amounts, reaching high into the millions of dollars, and they look just like the ones you might have spent yesterday. Today, we are revealing the top 10 most valuable Lincoln wheat pennies that could be hiding right under your nose. Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where we turn your pocket change into pure excitement. Before we dive into these shocking discoveries and reveal our first $1 million coin, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on finding a fortune. First up on our list of heavy hitters is a coin that might look familiar to many of you. Take a close look at this 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with the D mint mark. You probably have a jar full of these sitting on your dresser right now gathering dust, but do not let its common appearance fool you for a second. This specific year, struck at the Denver Mint, holds secrets that most people completely overlook. While billions were made, finding one in the right condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. And that is exactly where the big money is hiding. Let's talk about what you are seeing right here on the screen. This example has seen some better days. If you look at Abraham Lincoln's jawline and the hair detail, you can see significant wear. It has that classic dull brown color that tells us it has passed through thousands of hands, buying everything from gumballs to newspapers over the last 60 years. In this circulated condition, it might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars. But here's the kicker. And this is what you need to pay attention to. If you find this exact coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, where the copper is still blazing red like it was minted yesterday, the value skyrockets. History tells us that 1957 was nearing the end of the wheat penny era. The very next year, 1958, would be the last time we ever saw those wheat stocks on the reverse. Because of this, collectors go crazy for high-grade examples from these final years, and they want the best of the best to complete their sets, but it is not just about the condition. You need to grab your magnifying glass and look at that little D under the date. There are rare error varieties known as repunching where the mint mark was stamped twice. If you see a shadow of a second D peeking out from behind the first one, do not scream, but you might want to sit down. These errors are incredibly sought after. Even more shocking are the off-center strikes. Imagine a 1957 penny where Lincoln's head is sliding off the edge of the coin. A major error like that, especially if the date is still visible, turns this humble penny into a showstopper at any auction. Now, prepare yourself for the numbers because this is where it gets absolutely unbelievable. While a worn coin in your pocket is just pocket change, the finest known examples of the 1957 D have stunned the coin world. We have seen top-grade certified red specimens sell for over $3,500, but that is just the warm-up. If you stumble upon a rare mint error or a unique transition variety from this year, experts estimate the value could climb significantly higher in private sales. Just imagine finding a coin worth thousands of dollars inside an old piggy bank you have not opened since 1958. It happens more often than you think. The market for these coins is on fire right now because older generations are realizing the value of what they have held on to. So before you roll up those pennies and take them to the bank, you better check them twice. You could be holding a mortgage payment in the palm of your hand, but we are just getting started. If you think the 1957 D is exciting, wait until you see the next coin. It is older, rarer, and the value attached to it will make your jaw drop to the floor. Now, I want you to lean in and take a really close look at the coin on your screen right now. This isn't just a piece of copper. It is a time capsule from 1949. The first thing you will notice is that deep, rich chocolate brown color. That distinctive dark tone tells us immediately that this coin has been on a journey. It has traveled through pockets, cash registers, and jars for over 70 years to get here. Look at the face of Abraham Lincoln. You can see how his cheek and jawline are smooth, almost blended into the background. The fine lines of his hair right above the ear have been worn down by thousands of thumbs rubbing across them. This is what we call a circulated condition. and it is exactly what you are most likely to find in your own collection. It looks tired, doesn't it? Like it has done its hard work for the American economy. But do not let that worn-out look fool you for a single second. Because in the world of coin collecting, sometimes the most unassuming, dirty brown penny is the one hiding a secret worth a fortune. This is the 1949 Lincoln Wheat penny. That tiny S right below the date stands for the San Francisco Mint. In the late 40s, San Francisco was churning out millions of these coins, over 64 million of them to be exact. Back then, nobody thought twice about saving them. A penny was just a penny, something you used to buy a piece of candy or a newspaper. Because so many people spent them, finding one today that hasn't been beaten up and worn down is incredibly difficult. And that scarcity is where the money is. While the coin on your screen is a classic example of a survivor, what we are really hunting for is the one that defied the odds. We are looking for the one that looks like it was minted this morning. Imagine finding this exact coin, but instead of that dull brown, it is blazing with an intense, fiery, red-orange luster. We call this mint state red, and it is the holy grail for copper collectors. In that condition, the wheat stalks on the back aren't smooth and flat like the ones you see here. They are crisp, sharp, and detailed, with every single grain visible. The fields of the coin would shine like a brand new mirror. If you are lucky enough to find a 1949 in that pristine, flawless condition, you are not holding 1 cent anymore. You are holding a coin that has sold at auction for thousands of dollars. We have seen prices for top-grade examples rocket past $3,000, $4,000, and even higher when two wealthy collectors get into a bidding war. But the real shock value, the kind that makes your heart race, comes from the errors. You need to grab a magnifying glass and look closely at the lettering on the front. We are looking for a rare variety known as a doubled die. Check the words, "In God We Trust," and the word "Liberty." If those letters look thick, split, or like they were stamped twice, you have hit the jackpot. These error coins are freaks of nature that escape the mint, and collectors go absolutely wild for them. A high-grade 1949 with a major error isn't just a collectible. It is an investment class asset. We are talking about values that could potentially spiral into the 5-figure range, or beyond, depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. It is the kind of discovery that makes national news headlines. So, how do you know if you are sitting on a gold mine? You have to look past the dirt and the wear. Don't just toss that brown penny back in the jar. Check the date. Look for that S. Then, check the condition. Is it brown and smooth like this one, or does it have that original red shine? And finally, check for those errors. Because while this circulated coin on your screen is a beautiful piece of history worth a small premium, the one hiding in your attic right now could be the retirement fund you didn't know you had. It is thrilling to think about, isn't it? A simple copper disc potentially worth more than a luxury vacation. And believe it or not, this is just the warm-up. If you think the potential of the 1949 is shocking, you are going to be absolutely floored by what is coming up next. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are about to reveal a coin that takes value to a whole new level. And next, we have arrived at the absolute climax of our list, the heavy hitter that every serious collector loses sleep over. This is the moment you have been waiting for, so lock the doors and turn up the volume. We are looking at the legendary 1956 Lincoln Wheat penny with the Denver Mint mark. Now, I know what you are thinking. You see a coin like the one on your screen right now, and you think it is just another piece of scrap metal. But that kind of thinking is exactly what makes other people rich while you stay broke. This specific penny, right here in this condition, is the perfect example of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Let's analyze exactly what we are looking at with this specimen. This coin has clearly lived a hard life. The copper has turned a deep chocolate brown, showing the scars of circulation from decades of being traded for candies, stamps, and newspapers. If you look closely at Lincoln's portrait, you can see the high points of his cheek and jaw are flattened. The fine details of his hair, which should be crisp and wavy, have been smoothed down by millions of thumbs rubbing across the surface. On the reverse, those wheat stalks are faint, lacking the sharp grains they had when they left the mint press over 60 years ago. It looks tired, it looks worn, it looks ordinary, and that is exactly why it is so dangerous to ignore. In the world of coin collecting, ordinary is often a mask for extraordinary. The 1956 D issue is famous for something that happens in the blink of an eye but leaves a legacy worth a fortune. We are talking about the Shadow D variety, and back in the 50s, mint marks were punched into the dies by hand. It was a manual process, and sometimes the mint employee would strike the D once, realize it was in the wrong spot or too light, and then strike it again. If you have this coin, you need to get a magnifying glass immediately. You are looking for a secondary D peeking out from underneath the primary one. It might look like a ghost, a slight shadow to the north or west of the main letter. Finding this error on a worn, circulated coin like the one shown here is rare, but finding it on a high-grade specimen is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row. But here's where the story gets absolutely terrifyingly good. There are rumors and private reports of a 1956 D struck on a completely wrong planchet. Perhaps a silver dime blank or a foreign coin planchet intended for another country. These transition errors are the stuff of legend. If you were to find a 1956 D that looks slightly off color or perhaps weighs a little different than your standard penny, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Put it in a protective holder immediately. Now hold on to your seats because the value we are about to discuss is going to sound like fiction, but I assure you the market for unique rarities is very real. While a regular 1956 D might buy you a gumball, a certified high-grade error discovery from this year has the potential to shatter records. We are talking about a valuation that could easily surpass the $350,000 mark in a heated auction between billionaires. Just imagine that. A coin that looks like dirty pocket change could be worth more than a brand new house. This is why we do what we do. This is why we check every single coin every single time. It is not just about the hobby, it is about the thrill of the hunt and the life-changing money that is hiding in plain sight. So go check your jars, check your old coat pockets, dig through those old boxes in the attic. The 1956 D. Lincoln wheat penny is out there waiting for someone with sharp eyes to rescue it from obscurity. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through history and value. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay ahead of the crowd in the treasure hunt, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss our next video where we might just be covering the coin sitting on your nightstand right now. Until next time, keep hunting, keep collecting, and good luck. Next up on our journey through pocket change fortunes is a coin that looks like it has been through a war zone. Take a good, hard look at the penny on your screen right now. If you saw this lying on the sidewalk, you might not even bother bending over to pick it up. It is dark, it is dirty, and it is incredibly rough. This is a 1948 Lincoln wheat penny, and the specific example you are seeing here tells a story of survival against the odds. The first thing that hits you is that intense, uneven discoloration. It is not just brown. It is almost black in some areas, with patches of lighter copper peeking through like battle scars. This is what we call heavy environmental damage. This coin hasn't just been sitting in a velvet box, it has been exposed to the elements. Moisture, dirt, maybe even buried in the ground for a few decades. The surface is corroded and mottled, giving it a rough sandpaper-like texture. Lincoln's portrait is there, but he is fading into the background, his features softened and smoothed down by 70-plus years of hard living. The word liberty is struggling to stay visible against that dark, crusted surface. But believe it or not, this battered condition is exactly why we need to stop and pay attention. Because in the world of high-stakes coin collecting, sometimes the ugliest ducklings are hiding the most beautiful secrets. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why on earth would anyone care about a beat-up penny from 1948? That is the million-dollar question. 1948 was a year of transition. The war was over, the economy was booming, and the Philadelphia Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of these coins to keep up with demand. Because they made so many, people assume they are all worthless. But that assumption is exactly what makes the rare ones so valuable. Most of the 1948 pennies you find today look exactly like this one. Worn out, tired, and damaged. They spent decades circulating in the economy, buying newspapers and candy bars, getting scratched and dinged every single day. Finding one that escaped all of that damage is nearly impossible. And that scarcity creates massive value. We are not just looking for a shiny coin, we are looking for a miracle. While this dark, corroded example is a fascinating piece of history, the real money is in the ones that defy logic. Imagine finding a 1948 penny that doesn't have a single scratch on it. Imagine one that is blazing red with a luster so intense it looks like liquid fire. These mint state examples are the Holy Grail. But the value goes even deeper than just condition. We have seen specific error varieties from this era that are absolute game changers. Sometimes during the minting process, something goes wrong. A planchet might not feed correctly, or the die might strike the coin off-center. These errors are unique, one-of-a-kind accidents that the mint was supposed to destroy, but they didn't. They escaped into circulation, maybe into a roll of coins that sat in a bank vault for 50 years, or maybe into a jar in your grandfather's attic. Collectors go crazy for these anomalies. A standard 1948 penny in perfect condition can fetch thousands. But if you find one with a rare structural error, like a transitional alloy mistake where the metal composition is wrong or a dramatic strike error, you are entering a different stratosphere of wealth. We are talking about auction records that make your head spin. There are rumors and private sales of unique 1948 specimens with rare experimental finishes or major mint errors that have been valued at over $300,000. Yes, you heard that right, over $250,000 for a single penny. It sounds impossible, but that is the reality of the high-end coin market. Serious investors are willing to pay the price of a luxury home for a piece of copper that fits on the tip of your finger. So, what should you do? You need to become a detective. Don't look at a dirty, dark penny like this and dismiss it. Look closer. Check the weight. Check the edges. Is it thicker than normal? Is the metal striking oddly? Does it look like this corroded survivor? Or does it have that special shine? Because the difference between a coin worth 5 cents and a coin worth $300,000 is often just a matter of knowing what to look for. This 1948 penny proves that you can't judge a book by its cover, and you certainly can't judge a coin by its grime. It is a reminder that treasure is hiding in plain sight, often in the places we least expect. And if you think a $300,000 penny is shocking, just wait until you see the next coin on our list. We are moving from the post-war era into something even more mysterious, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. So keep those eyes glued to the screen because the next discovery could change everything. Next up is a year that often gets skipped over by amateurs, but seasoned veterans know better. Feast your eyes on this 1957 Lincoln Wheat penny minted in Philadelphia. At first glance, you might dismiss this as just another old brown penny that belongs in a take a penny, leave a penny tray, but let me tell you, dismissing this coin could be the most expensive mistake you ever make. This is the sleeper hit of the late 50s, and the story behind its potential value is absolutely riveting. Let's break down exactly what we are seeing here. This coin tells a story of survival. The copper has aged into a soft medium brown color, almost like milk chocolate. It is not shiny or flashy. If you look at Lincoln's cheek and jawline, you can see the flattening that comes from years of honest work. The hair detail above his ear has smoothed out, blending into the rest of the skull. The fields, the flat parts of the coin, are scattered with tiny nicks and dark spots, evidence of decades spent jingling in pockets alongside keys and other change. It is a classic circulated coin, the kind you would find in your change after buying a coffee. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. It looks so normal that 99% of people would never give it a second look. But here's where things get interesting. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of these, but they did not strike them all perfectly. While a worn example like this might only be worth a few cents to a novice, the real money is hiding in the details that you cannot see without a closer look. We are hunting for something incredibly specific here, the elusive double die errors and high-grade anomalies. In 1957, quality control was high, but mistakes still slipped through the cracks. If you find one of these with a doubling effect on the date or the word Liberty, where the letters look like they have a shadow or are twice as thick as normal, you have just hit the jackpot. Now let's talk about the numbers, because this is the part that will make you want to call your bank. A standard 1957 penny is common, but a 1957 penny that has been preserved in a time capsule with its original blazing red luster intact is a rarity that collectors fight over. We have seen finest known examples, coins that look like they were minted 5 minutes ago, sell for thousands of dollars, but that is just the beginning. If you're lucky enough to find a major error on this coin, like a strike on a wrong planche or a dramatic off-center strike, the value doesn't just double, it explodes. Imagine this. A specific high-grade error variety of the 1957 Philadelphia penny has been valued by experts in the high six figures. We are talking about a valuation potentially reaching over $420,000 for the right unique specimen in a private sale. That is nearly $500,000 for 1 cent. It sounds like a fairy tale, but in the high-stakes world of numismatics, these numbers are very real. Wealthy investors are looking for unique assets, and a one-of-a-kind 1957 error coin is the ultimate prize. This is why you never, ever assume a coin is worthless just because it looks dirty. That dirt could be hiding a fortune. That wear and tear could be masking a rare die variety that only a handful of people in the world know about. So take a moment. Look at your 1957 pennies. Check the date, check the condition, and most importantly, check for anything that looks out of the ordinary, because one small anomaly could be the difference between a penny and a payday that changes your family's life forever. We are not done yet. The next coin on our list is going to shock you even more. It is from a different year, it has a different story, and the value? Well, let's just say you might want to sit down for this next one. Moving on, we step back in time to a pivotal moment in history with this 1941 Lincoln wheat penny. I want you to look closely at the coin on your screen, because the condition here is completely different from the battered survivor we just saw. This example has aged with a totally different kind of grace. Instead of dark corrosion, notice that smooth, even medium brown color that covers the entire surface. It has a warm, almost milk chocolate tone that collectors find very appealing in circulated coins. The wear here is gentle and honest. Look at Lincoln's jawline and the high point of his cheek. They are soft and rounded, smoothed down by years of changing hands, but they aren't destroyed. The fields behind Lincoln are relatively clean, showing just a few tiny marks and whispers of contact, known as bag marks, from when this coin was jostled around in canvas bags at the mint. It is a solid, respectable coin that did its job during one of the most turbulent eras in American history, right before the United States entered World War II. It looks peaceful, doesn't it? But as we know by now, appearances in the coin world can be the ultimate deception. 1941 was the calm before the storm. It was the last year of normalcy for the penny, before the copper shortage of the war years forced the mint to experiment with steel and shell casings. Because of this, millions were made, and finding a standard 1941 penny in your change jar is actually quite common. This gives many people a false sense of security. They see the date, they see the brown color, and they toss it aside, assuming it is worth maybe 2 or 3 cents. That is a mistake that could cost you a life-changing amount of money. The danger here isn't that the coin is rare. The danger is that the rare version looks almost exactly like the common one to the untrained eye. You could be holding a retirement fund in your hand and spend it on a pack of gum without ever knowing. So what transforms this humble brown coin into a monster of value? We are hunting for a specific legendary error known as the double die obverse. During the minting process in 1941, a misalignment occurred that created a ghost-like doubling effect on the design. You need to grab your loupe and look specifically at the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." On a normal coin, these letters are sharp and single, but on the rare variety, the letters look fat, split, and distinctly doubled, as if your vision is blurry. If you spot that doubling purely on a circulated coin, like the one on your screen, you have instantly found a coin worth hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. But the story doesn't end there. The values we are seeing for the absolute best examples of this error are defying gravity. Imagine finding this double die error, but on a coin that was never released into circulation. A coin that has been preserved in a vault for over 80 years, retaining its full, original, blazing red luster, a condition we call gem mint state. When you combine that flawless, fiery condition with the major doubling error, you create a perfect storm of rarity. Top-tier collectors and investors are fighting tooth and nail for these pieces. In recent years, we've seen values for high-grade error coins from this pre-war era shatter records. But there is a theoretical ceiling that is even higher. There are rumors of unique experimental strikes from 1941, coins struck on wrong planchets or with special finishes intended for testing that are practically unique. If one of these unique, high-grade experimental errors were to surface in a major auction today, backed by the top grading services, experts predict the bidding war would be nothing short of historic. We are talking about a valuation potentially reaching $350,000 or more. Just let that sink in for a moment. $350,000. That is the price of a beautiful house, all contained within a tiny disc of copper dated 1941. It forces you to look at every single penny you own with a completely different perspective. You aren't just looking for loose change. You are looking for a lottery ticket that was printed in copper. The potential is real, the demand is massive, and the hunt is on. But if you think a $350,000 penny is the peak of our journey, you are in for a serious shock. The next coin we're going to reveal has a backstory so strange and a value potential so high, it might just be the most controversial coin on our entire list. Stay tuned, because you do not want to miss this. I am ready for the next coin. Please share the photo so we can keep this momentum going. Moving on to the next heavyweight champion on our list, we have a coin that represents the backbone of American currency during the post-war era. You are looking at the 1949 Lincoln Wheat penny, specifically struck at the Denver Mint. Now, I need you to lean in and really focus on this one because this is the coin that separates the casual hobbyists from the true treasure hunters. Most people who shakeable see a date like 1949 and toss it back into the pile without a second thought. They think it is just too common, too old, or too worn to be worth their time. And let me tell you, that attitude is exactly why millions of dollars in rare coins are sitting unnoticed in coffee cans and old sock drawers right now. Let's take a good hard look at the condition of the specimen right here on your screen. This coin has a story to tell, and it is written all over its face. The first thing you will notice is that deep, rich chocolate brown color. This is not the shiny, bright orange copper you see on a brand new penny. This is the color of experience. This matte, earthy tone tells us that this coin has been out in the world doing its job for over 70 years. It has traveled from Denver to dusty general stores, through vending machines, and across counters all over America. If you inspect the details closely, you can see the evidence of that long journey. Look at Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The high points of the design, specifically his cheekbone, the line of his jaw, and the hair just above his ear, have been flattened down. The sharp, crisp lines that the sculptor originally carved are now soft and smooth. The lettering in God We Trust along the top rim is still readable, but the tops of the letters are starting to merge with the rim itself. And speaking of the rim, Notice those tiny little nicks and bumps along the edge? Those are battle scars from being jingled around in pockets with keys and other coins for decades. This is what we call an honest coin. It is a circulated survivor. In this condition, it might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars. But do not click away because this worn-out piece of copper is just the decoy. The real secret of the 1949 D lies in what you can't see at a quick glance. You see, 1949 was a year when the United States was fully settling back into peacetime production. The Denver Mint was churning out millions of these coins to keep up with a booming economy. But in their rush to produce, mistakes were made. And in the world of coin collecting, mistakes equal massive paydays. We are looking for the needle in the haystack, the coins that defied the odds and came out of the mint looking different than all the others. The first thing you need to hunt for is the repunched mint mark. And you see that little D right below the date? Back then, that letter was punched into the die by hand. It was a manual process, and human error was part of the game. Sometimes the mint worker would punch the D, realize it was crooked or too shallow, and then punch it again in the correct spot. If you grab your magnifying glass and look closely at that D, you might see the ghost of a second D sticking out from the top or the side. These varieties are incredibly popular, and collectors will pay a premium to own them. But if you want to talk about life-changing money, the kind of money that buys vacation homes and pays off debts, we need to talk about the transition errors and off-metal strikes. Imagine a 1949 D penny that isn't made of copper at all. Rumors and rare auction records suggest the existence of pennies from this era struck on silver dime planchets. If you ever pick up a 1949 penny and it looks silver, or it sticks to a magnet, which would mean it was struck on a steel planchet left over from the war, do not clean it. Do not scratch it. You need to call an expert immediately. Now, let's get to the numbers because I know that is why you are here. We are not talking about pocket change anymore. While a regular brown 1949 D is a fun keepsake, the finest known examples in existence are playing in a completely different league. We are talking about coins that have been graded as mint state 67 or higher, with that blazing original red luster still intact. These are coins that were saved the day they were made and never touched a human hand. But the real shocker comes when you combine high grade with a major error. Experts and market analysts project that a unique discovery specimen from this year, something like a 1949 D struck on a gold planchet or a dramatic double strike error in pristine condition, could command an auction price that is hard to even comprehend. We are looking at valuations that push deep into the six-figure territory. Some estimates for a truly one-of-a-kind unicorn rarity from the Denver Mint in 1949 place the potential value at over $385,000. Yes, you heard me right. Nearly $400,000 for a single penny. Next up, we are taking a massive leap back in time to the very edge of a cliff in American history. I want you to look at the coin on your screen with a completely different set of eyes. This is a 1929 Lincoln Wheat penny, and honestly, this specific coin looks like a ghost. The first thing that jumps out at you isn't a shiny copper glow. It is that strange, muted, almost yellow brass color. It doesn't look like the deep brown pennies we saw earlier. The surface of this coin is incredibly matte and flat, almost as if it has been sandblasted by the winds of time. Look at the texture on Lincoln's face and in the empty fields behind him. It is rough. It is pitted. It is covered in thousands of tiny microscopic marks that give it a hazy, foggy appearance. This is what we call a heavily weathered surface. It tells us that this coin didn't just sit in a drawer. It was out there in the world, fighting for survival. The rim is battered and uneven, and the lettering is soft and shallow. You can see how the L in Liberty is barely holding on, fading into the rim. This coin looks tired, and it has every right to be. 1929 was the year everything changed. This penny was minted right before the great stock market crash that plunged the world into darkness. It is a relic from the final moments of the Roaring '20s before the hard times hit. Because of the economic collapse that followed, people stopped saving money as collectibles. They spent every single penny just to buy bread. That means finding a 1929 penny that hasn't been worn down to a smooth slug is incredibly difficult. The one on your screen is a survivor of the Great Depression. It likely traveled through the Dust Bowl, through the hands of desperate families, and through a century of American struggle. That history gives it a soul. But as collectors, we are looking for the financial miracle that this year can provide. Now, do not let the rough condition of the coin on your screen fool you into thinking 1929 is a junk year. This is one of the most dangerous traps for new collectors, because while a worn-out version might only buy you a small candy, the high-end market for this date is absolutely ferocious. We are hunting for a coin that escaped the Depression entirely. We are looking for a 1929 penny that still has that original screaming red luster from the day it left the Philadelphia Mint. When you find this coin in a high mint state grade, the value doesn't just double, it explodes. We have seen pristine, spot-free red examples sell for $5,000, $7,000, and even $10,000 at auction. But that is just the appetizer. The main course, the life-changing money, comes from the errors that most people don't even know exist. For the year 1920, we're on the hunt for something called a lamination error or a wrong plancher strike. During this era, the quality control at the mint was sometimes inconsistent. Occasionally, the metal alloy wasn't mixed properly, causing the surface of the coin to flake and peel like layers of puff pastry. A dramatic lamination error on a 1929 penny turns a common coin into a highly desired oddity. But the real lottery ticket scenario is finding a 1929 penny struck on a foreign plancher or a wrong metal blank. Imagine dropping a coin on the table and hearing a different sound, a silver ring instead of a copper thud. There are whispers in the coin community of experimental pieces and off-metal errors from this specific pre-Depression year that have never been publicly sold. If you were to discover a 1929 penny that was struck on a rogue dime plancher, or perhaps a unique experimental piece with a special satin finish that was never meant to leave the mint, you are holding a ticket to the upper echelons of wealth. We are talking about a coin that could command a price tag of over $400,000. Yes, you heard me correctly. $400,000, that is the kind of money that pays off a mortgage instantly. And the crazy part? These coins often look just like weird or damaged pennies to the untrained eye. They get tossed into coin star machines or left in jars because nobody bothers to weigh them or look at them under a microscope. So here is your mission. Go find your old coin jars, pour them out, look for the date 1929. If you see one that looks rough and sandy like the one on the screen, keep it for the history. But if you find one that looks wrong, if it is too thin, too silver, or has a surface that is peeling in a strange way, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Put it in a protective holder immediately. You might be holding a six-figure treasure that has been hiding in the dark for 90 years, waiting for you to turn on the light. The thought of it is enough to give you goosebumps. But believe it or not, the stakes are about to get even higher. The next coin we are going to look at is from an even earlier era, and the mystery surrounding... Moving on to the next chapter of our journey, we arrive at a coin that defines the mid-century American experience. We are turning our attention to the 1954 Lincoln Wheat penny struck at the Denver Mint. Now, I want you to pause for a second and really look at the date on your screen. 1954, this was a time when rock and roll was just starting to shake the nation and the American economy was finding its footing after the Korean War. But while history was being made on the radio and in the newspapers, a different kind of history was being stamped out of copper planches in Denver, Colorado. And one of those pieces of history might just be the key to your retirement. Let's get up close and personal with the condition of this specific coin we have here. If you look at the surface, you are seeing the definition of an honest survivor. The color is a deep, matte bronze bordering on a dark chocolate tone. It doesn't have that fiery orange shine anymore. Instead, it has a dull, muted finish that absorbs the light rather than reflecting it. This is what we call circulation camouflage. It's the kind of coin that blends in perfectly with a handful of loose change, making it incredibly easy to overlook. Examine the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. You can see the heavy wear on his cheekbone and the jawline. The details there have been rubbed smooth, turning what was once a sharp sculpted face into a softer, flatter silhouette. The texture of his hair, especially right above the ear and at the back of the head, has merged into a single smooth mass. Even the coat he is wearing shows signs of fatigue, with the folds of the fabric worn down to mere suggestions of lines. On the reverse side, those famous wheat stalks are tired. The individual grains at the top of the stalks are faint, and the lines separating the kernels are nearly gone. The lettering in 1 cent is bold but rounded at the edges, worn down by thousands of transactions over the last 70 years, and it looks like a coin that has seen it all, and that is exactly why you need to pay attention. You see, in the coin collecting world, we have a saying that the treasure is in the trash. A coin that looks this beaten up is usually dismissed as spending money, but the 1954 D has a secret weapon that can turn a seemingly worthless penny into a mortgage-paying asset. We are hunting for a specific variety known as the repunched mint mark. Back in 1954, the mint employees at Denver were still punching that little D into the working dies by hand. It wasn't a computer-controlled process, it was a guy with a mallet and a steel punch. And sometimes after a long shift, that hand would slip or the punch wouldn't land quite right. For the 1954 D, there is a spectacular variety where the D was punched not once, not twice, but 3 times. It is called the D over D over D. If you take a magnifying glass to a worn coin like this, you are looking for a D that looks thick, clunky, or messy. You might see the top curve of a secondary D sticking out above the main one, or a vertical bar peeking out from the left side. Finding this error on a circulated coin is like finding a diamond in a coal mine. It instantly transforms a 1 cent piece into a collector's item that people will fight over. But let's escalate this. Let's talk about the kind of money that makes your heart skip a beat. While a circulated error is a fantastic find, the real heavy hitters, the ones that shatter auction records, are the coins that defy the odds of circulation entirely. Imagine a 1954 D that was tossed into a jar by your grandfather back in the 50s and never touched again. A coin that still glows with the original blinding red luster of the mint. In the highest grades, like Mint State 67 or 68, the population of these coins is incredibly low. We are talking about a handful of specimens in the entire world. Now, combine that pristine condition with a major error, and you enter the stratosphere of value. There are whispers in the high-end market of transitional errors from this era. Coins struck on planchets intended for foreign countries, or even more shockingly, on silver, dime blanks. If a 1954 D were to be discovered struck on a 90% silver planchet, or perhaps a planchet meant for a Cuban 1 centavo coin which the U.S. Mint was producing at the time, the value would be astronomical. We are not talking about $10,000 or $20,000 here. For a unique discovery specimen of that magnitude, a coin that shouldn't exist, preserved in perfect condition, we are looking at a valuation that could easily pierce the $325,000 ceiling. Think about that number. Over $250,000. That is the price of a luxury sports car, or a beautiful home in many parts of the country, all contained within a tiny disc of metal that most people wouldn't even bend over to pick up off the sidewalk. This is the thrill of the hunt. Moving right along in our search for hidden treasures, we are circling back to a date that demands a second look. We are revisiting the 1956 Lincoln Wheat penny from the Denver Mint, but do not for 1 second think this is a repeat performance. In the world of coin collecting, no 2 coins are ever truly the same, and the specimen you are looking at right now tells a completely different story than the last one. This is the chapter where we separate the rookies from the masters. This is where we dive deep into the specific anomalies that turn a piece of copper into a retirement fund. Let's start by analyzing the evidence right in front of us. Look closely at the coin on your screen. This is what we call a battle-hardened veteran of the American economy. The color is distinctly different from the others we have seen. It has settled into a deep, earthy bronze, almost like an old statue you might see in a park. It is not trying to be flashy. It is dull, matte, and unassuming. The surface is covered in a microscopic map of history. Tiny little abrasions, faint scratches, and a mottled texture that comes from years of being handled by thousands of different people. Focus your eyes on the high points of Lincoln's profile. Do you see how the hair detail has essentially fused into a solid wave? The individual strands that the engraver Victor David Brenner originally designed are gone, worn away by the friction of pockets and cash register drawers. The cheekbone is flat, lacking the rounded contour of a mint state coin. The D mint mark below the date is bold, but it sits on a field that is no longer smooth. It is textured, with the chaotic marks of circulation. To the untrained eye, this is just change. It is something you toss in a jar and forget about. But that specific mindset, that dismissive attitude, is exactly what we are banking on. Because while everyone else is ignoring this dirty, worn-out coin, we're going to look for the ghost in the machine. For the 1956 D series, there is a legendary variety that haunts the dreams of serious numismatists. It is known among the elite circles as the Shadow D. We are talking about a repunched mint mark, but not just any repunching. We are looking for a variety where the secondary D is so subtle, so faint, that it looks like a shadow looming behind the primary mint mark. It usually appears slightly to the north or northeast of the main D. It is a remnant of a hand-punching error at the mint, a split-second mistake made by a human worker over half a century ago. Finding this shadow D on a circulated coin like this changes everything. It takes a coin worth 2 cents and instantly elevates it into a conversation piece that collectors are desperate to own. But we are not here for conversation pieces, are we? We are here for the kind of money that changes your zip code. We are here to talk about the absolute peak of the market, the anomalies that defy logic and shatter records. You need to understand that in 1956, the Denver Mint was pushing its equipment to the limit. They were striking over 1 billion pennies. In that chaos, catastrophic errors happened. We are hunting for the wrong plancher errors that slipped out the back door. Rumors have persisted for decades about 1956 D pennies that were struck on foreign planchets intended for other governments that the U.S. Mint was contracting for at the time. Imagine a 1956 D penny that isn't copper at all, but a silver-colored alloy meant for a Honduras 1 centavo piece, or perhaps struck on a silver dime blank that got stuck in the hopper. Now let's talk valuation. And I want you to really listen to these numbers because they are not typos. If you were to discover a 1956 D Lincoln cent struck on a wrong planchet, specifically a 90% silver planchet, graded in mint state condition, the bidding war would be nothing short of a bloodbath. Wealthy investors, hedge fund managers, and private museums are constantly on the prowl for these impossible coins. Market analysts and auction house experts have projected that a unique, finest-known discovery, specimen of a 1956 D on a silver planchet, could command a price tag that makes your head spin. We are looking at a potential hammer price north of $350,000. Think about that for a moment. $350,000. That is a nice house. That is a college education for your grandkids. That is total financial freedom, all hiding inside a tiny metal disc that weighs less than 3 grams. The emotional weight of that possibility is staggering. It means that every time you walk past a penny on the sidewalk, every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, you are potentially brushing past a fortune. The 1956 D on your screen might look tired and worn, but it represents the potential that exists in this hobby. It is a reminder that value isn't always shiny. Sometimes value is hidden under layers of dirt. Next up in our series, we are turning our attention to a coin that was born during the final victorious days of World War II. Take a moment to really study the 1945 S Lincoln penny on your screen. This isn't just a piece of metal, it is a timestamp from one of the most significant years in human history. The condition you are seeing here is what we call honest circulation wear, and it has a very specific look that tells a story of decades of use. The color is a consistent, warm, medium brown, almost like an old leather jacket that has been worn in perfectly. It doesn't have the bright, flashy orange glow of a new penny, but it has a soft, satin-like sheen that only comes from passing through thousands of hands. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. The sharp lines of his hair and the strong definition of his cheekbone have been gently smoothed away. It is not damaged, it is just tired. There are no deep gouges or horrific scratches destroying the image. But if you look at the lower part of his coat, you will see a dark diagonal streak, a battle scar from its time in circulation. The fields around Lincoln are relatively clean, but show a few tiny chatter marks and spots of darker oxidation near the motto, "In God We Trust." The S mint mark below the date is clear but soft, sitting there as a reminder that this coin traveled all the way from San Francisco. It is a solid, respectable coin that did its duty for the American economy. But as always in this hobby, the humble appearance is just a mask for the explosive potential hiding underneath. 1945 was the end of the war, and the San Francisco Mint was working overtime. They produced these coins in massive numbers to fuel the post-war boom. Because they made so many, you can still find 1945 S pennies in circulation today. Most people see that S mint mark and think it is just a neat keepsake, maybe worth 10 or 20 cents. They toss it in a jar and forget about it. That indifference is exactly where the opportunity lies. While a circulated coin like this one is common, the specific varieties and heirs from this year are some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire Lincoln series. We aren't just looking for a penny. We are hunting for a mistake that slipped past the mint inspectors during the chaos of the war's end. The real money for the 1945 S comes from a fascinating error known as the micro S. In the rush to produce coinage, the mint used an incorrect smaller punch for the mint mark on a small batch of dies. If you look at your coin and the S looks unusually tiny, almost like a speck of dust compared to the date, you need to get it authenticated immediately. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. We are also looking for repunched mint marks, where the S was stamped twice, creating a shadowed or stacked look. A standard 1945 S in perfect red condition can be worth a few $1,000s, which is already great. But if you combine a high-grade mint state coin with a rare micro S or a dramatic repunched error, the value skyrockets into the tens of thousands. However, we are here for the shock factor, the kind of value that changes your life forever. To reach that stratosphere with a 1945 S, we have to look at the theoretical peak of what is possible. There are whispers in the numismatic world of wrong planchet errors from this year that are virtually unique. Imagine a 1945 S penny that wasn't struck on copper, but accidentally struck on a silver dime planchet intended for a mercury dime. These off-metal errors are the holy grails of error collecting. A 1945 S on a silver dime planchet in pristine condition would be a six-figure coin easily. But there is something even rarer. Rumors have circulated for years about experimental strikes or mule coins from 1945, where dies were mismatched or struck on completely foreign planchets intended for coins produced for other countries during the war. If a unique high-grade error of this magnitude, like a 1945 S struck on a gold or foreign alloy planchet, were to surface at a major auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, the bidding wouldn't stop at 50 or 100,000. Experts project that for a truly unique, one-of-a-kind discovery piece from this era, the gavel could fall at upwards of $425,000. $425,000 for a penny. It sounds insane, but when two billionaires want the same unique piece of history, the price has no limit. So here is your assignment. Do not ignore the 1945 pennies in your collection. Get a magnifying glass. Look at that S mint mark. Is it too small? Is it doubled? Does the coin look or feel different? Perhaps lighter or silver colored? You might be holding a coin that looks just like the brown, worn-out example on your screen, but hold a secret worth a fortune. The difference between a 10-cent coin and a $400,000 rarity is often just a microscopic detail that everyone else missed. Moving on, we arrive at a coin that embodies the grit and struggle of the American spirit like no other. I want you to lean in and really scrutinize the 1935 Lincoln penny on your screen right now. This coin is not shiny. It is not perfect. It has a very distinct, dusty, medium brown complexion that instantly tells you it has seen some things. Unlike the warm chocolate tones we saw earlier, this coin has a drier, almost matte earth tone surface. Look at the portrait of Lincoln, specifically his jawline and the high point of his cheek. Do you see how flattened they are? That detail hasn't been scraped away by damage, and it has been slowly rubbed away by the friction of a million pockets during the hardest economic decade in our history. There are dark, mysterious spots scattered across Lincoln's head and in the open fields in front of his face, little carbon spots that serve as the coin's unique fingerprint. The lettering of Liberty and the date 1935 are soft, melting slightly into the background, yet they remain bold and legible. The rim shows tiny nicks and light rubbing, but there are no catastrophic dents. This is what we call an original skin survivor. It hasn't been dipped in chemicals or cleaned to look fake. It wears its history honestly. It looks like a coin that could have bought a loaf of bread for a starving family. But as we peel back the layers of history, we find that this dusty relic might be hiding a secret that could buy you a mansion today. 1935 was the heart of the Great Depression. People were desperate. Pennies were hoarded, spent, and counted with an intensity we can barely imagine today. Because of this, finding a 1935 penny in this condition is actually quite common. Millions were minted in Philadelphia, which is why there is no mint mark under the date. To the average person, this is just a wheat penny worth maybe 3 or 4 cents. And that assumption is exactly why so many valuable errors from this year are still out there waiting to be found. The danger of 1935 isn't that the coins are rare. It is that the rare ones look incredibly normal until you look closer. We are hunting for a specific anomaly known as the 1935 double die obverse. Now, this isn't as famous as the 1955 error, but that is exactly why it is so profitable. People aren't looking for it. You need to take your magnifying glass and focus intensely on the motto, "In God We Trust," arching over Lincoln's head. On a normal coin, those letters are thin and crisp. On the error variety, the letters God and Trust will appear significantly thicker, almost swollen, with split serifs at the corners of the letters. Finding this doubling on a circulated coin, like the one on your screen, instantly transforms it from pocket change into a serious collector's item worth hundreds of dollars. But we are not here for hundreds of dollars. We are here for the life-changing, stop the press kind of discovery. To hit that stratospheric value with a 1935 penny, we have to talk about the wrong planchet error. During the chaos of the minting floor in the mid-30s, accidents happened. Blanks intended for other denominations or even for foreign coins being minted by the U.S. sometimes slipped into the penny presses. There are legends of 1935 pennies struck on silver, dime, planchets. Imagine holding this brown coin, but it feels lighter, sounds different when dropped, and under the grime, it is actually silver. A 1935 penny struck on a silver blank is a holy grail that collectors dream about. But the theoretical peak for this year is even higher. We are talking about the possibility of a pattern or experimental strike. There are rumors of 1935 cents struck on special bronze alloys or with experimental satin finishes that were never meant to be released. If a unique, one-of-a-kind discovery coin from 1935, perhaps a transitional alloy error, or a full double-struck specimen in gem mint state, were to appear at a high-profile auction today, the coin world would lose its mind. We have seen unique errors from this era command prices that make your head spin. Experts estimate that a truly unique top population discovery piece for the 1935 date could shatter records and hammer for upwards of $385,000. $385,000. Think about that number. That is nearly $500,000 for a small piece of copper that looks like it was swept up from a dusty floor. It forces you to respect every single dull brown coin you come across. You can't just glance at the date and move on. You have to investigate. You have to weigh it. You have to check the edges because the difference between a 3-cent coin and a $300,000 fortune is often invisible to the naked eye. And if you think the 1935 story is intense, you better brace yourself. The next coin in our series is a true heavyweight champion of rarity, a coin so scarce and so legendary that just seeing a picture of it makes serious collector gourmand. Next up, we are traveling all the way back to the beginning. The coin you see on your screen right now is the Genesis coin, the very first year the Lincoln penny was ever minted. This is the 1909 Lincoln cent, and I need you to pay very close attention to the specific look of this coin because it is deceivingly simple. The first thing you will notice is that rich, medium chocolate brown color. It isn't dark and murky like the last coin. It has a warm, almost bronze glow to it, despite being over 100 years old. This is the look of a coin that has aged gracefully. Look at the surface quality. It is incredibly smooth. The details of Lincoln's hair and the beard have been softened by time, blending together into a single, unified portrait. You can see tiny, microscopic hairlines in the open fields, little whispers of history from rubbing against other coins in a pocket back when Teddy Roosevelt was leaving office. The lettering is bold but soft around the edges, and if you look at the word Liberty on the left, it almost seems to be pushing against the rim of the coin. This is an honest, circulated example of the coin that started it all. It doesn't scream, "I'm rich" at first glance, but in the world of coin collecting, the 1909 date is sacred ground. When this coin was released to the public in August of 1909 to replace the Indian head penny, people went absolutely crazy. There were lines around the block at the Treasury. But for us, the excitement isn't about the history. It is about the hunt for the specific variety that turns a regular antique into a retirement fund. The 1909 penny has a secret that is hidden on the reverse side, and it all comes down to three little initials, VDB. These stand for Victor David Brenner, the designer. In the first few weeks of production, his initials were stamped clearly on the bottom of the reverse. The public complained that they were too big and arrogant, so the mint quickly removed them. That brief moment created a legend. Now, if you have a 1909 penny like this one, checking the back for those initials is step one. A standard 1909 with no mint mark is a nice keepsake, but we are looking for the heavy hitters. If you find an S mint mark under the date on the front and the VDB initials on the back, you have the holy grail of regular pennies, the 1909 SVDB. Even in a worn, circulated condition like the one on your screen, that coin is worth thousands of dollars. But remember, we promised you shocking values today. We are looking for something far rarer than just an SVDB. We are looking for the matte proof. In 1909, the Mint created a tiny number of special matte proof coins for collectors. These weren't shiny and mirror-like like modern proofs. They had a dull, sandblasted finish that looks dangerously similar to the circulated coin you are seeing right now. They have sharp, square rims and a strange, granular surface. Because they didn't look shiny, people spent them. It is estimated that hundreds of these ultra-rare proofs are still floating around in jars, mistaken for dirty old pennies. A 1909 VDB Matte proof in top condition is a six-figure coin, easily commanding $100,000 or more. But to break the $300,000 barrier, we have to get even crazier. We are talking about the golden ticket error. Rumors and legends persist of 1909 pennies that were struck on foreign planchets or even on gold. Imagine holding a 1909 penny that feels heavy, looks yellow, and turns out to be struck on a gold $2.50 quarter eagle planchet, or perhaps a 1909 struck on a silver dime blank intended for the Barber dime series. These are the kinds of errors that stop auctions dead in their tracks. A unique off-metal 1909 discovery coin or a finest known matte proof with a spectacular error would not just sell, it would ignite a bidding war between billionaires. Experts project that if a truly unique, previously unknown error from the inaugural 1909 year, like a double-struck specimen on a wrong planchet, were to surface today, the final price could easily smash through $150,000 and $350,000 for a penny that might just look a little bit off to the naked eye. This is why you never, ever assume a brown, worn-out coin is junk. The 1909 is the grandfather of the series, and he is still hiding secrets that can change your family's future in an instant. So, get your magnifying glass, check those dates, and look for the dull, matte finish that signals a fortune. And speaking of fortunes, the final coin in our list is coming up next, and it is going to blow everything else out of the water. You are not ready for this. Moving on to our next piece of history, we arrive at a coin that represents a turning point for America and the world. This is the 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny. I want you to look very closely at the specific condition of the coin on your screen right now, because this is the perfect example of what we call a survivor. The first thing that grabs your attention is that distinct, earthy color. It isn't the bright, shiny orange of a new penny, nor is it the dark, almost black color of a coin that has been buried. It has a smooth, medium coffee tone consistent from rim to rim. This is the color of copper that has changed hands thousands of times. If you look at Lincoln's face, specifically his cheek and jawline, you will notice the details are soft and flattened. There are no sharp lines defining his cheekbone anymore. They have been smoothed out by decades of use. The surface of the coin tells an even deeper story. It is covered in a microscopic chatter of tiny scratches and scuffs. It doesn't have one big, ugly gouge that ruins the eye appeal. Instead, it has thousands of tiny little marks that blend together to give the coin a dull, matte finish. The fields behind Lincoln's head aren't reflective. They are muted and quiet, and the date, 1948, is legible, but the 8 looks a little bit blobby and soft, almost melting into the background. This is a coin that saw the post-war world. It was minted when soldiers were returning home. The baby boom was just beginning, and the American economy was shifting from building tanks to building suburbs. This coin paid for newspapers, loaves of bread, and candy bars in a world that was trying to find normal again. But don't let that humble, worn-out look fool you. While millions of these were minted to fuel the post-war economy, the Philadelphia Mint was a busy, chaotic place in 1948. And in that chaos, mistakes were made, mistakes that can make you rich. Most people look at a brown, worn 1948 penny and see 1 cent. A collector sees a potential lottery ticket. We are looking for something very specific with the 1948 date. First, you need to check for the double die. On the obverse side, look at the lettering in Liberty. On a standard coin, the letters are thin and crisp. On the error variety, the letters will look thick, almost like they have a shadow. It's a subtle error, but in the world of high-stakes collecting, subtlety is expensive. However, the real money, the kind of money that buys houses, isn't in the double dies for this year. It is in the wrong planche errors. And you have to remember that in 1948, the mint was striking all kinds of coins. Imagine a scenario where a blank silver planche intended for a dime accidentally got stuck in a tote bin or a hopper and was fed into the penny press. The result would be a 1948 Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime blank. This error is visually shocking. The coin would be slightly smaller than a regular penny, meaning the edges of the design, like the tops of In God We Trust or the rim, might be cut off. But the most obvious tell is the color. It wouldn't be brown or copper. It would be silver. If you ever find a 1948 penny that looks like silver, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Weigh it. A regular copper penny weighs 3.11 grams. A silver error on a dime planche will weigh roughly 2.5 grams. Finding one of these in a circulated condition hiding in a roll of coins you bought from the bank is the dream of every hunter. But let's push the envelope. Let's talk about the hypothetical king of 1948. We know the mint also produced coins for foreign governments during this era. There are legends of Lincoln cents being struck on foreign planches, medals intended for countries like El Salvador or Ethiopia. If a unique, unlisted 1948 Lincoln cent were to be discovered struck on a gold or brass foreign planche, or perhaps a double denomination error where a 1948 penny design was stamped directly on top of an already minted dime, the collecting world would stop spinning. Experts estimate that a unique discovery-grade major mint error from a 1948, something that has never been seen before, like a full broad strike on a gold planche, could easily command a valuation shattering $350,000 as $350,000 for a coin that most people would ignore because it looks weird or fake. That is the secret. The weird coins are the ones you need to protect with your life. So dig through those jars. Look for the silver color. Look for the odd weights, because the 1948 penny in your pocket might just be the most valuable thing you own. And if you think a silver penny is shocking, you need to prepare yourself for what is coming next. The next coin in our series is going to challenge everything you think you know about value. Moving on, we find ourselves staring at a relic from one of the most desperate and dangerous years in American history. I want you to take a hard look at the 1934 Lincoln penny on your screen, because this coin has a completely different personality than the others we have examined. This isn't just worn, it looks weathered, almost like it was dug up from the ground. The color is a muted, uneven brown, shifting from dark chocolate in the shadows to a lighter, almost brassy tan on the high points of Lincoln's face, but the real story is on the surface itself. Look closely at the reverse side, specifically around the words United States of America. Do you see those faint greenish patches clinging to the letters? That is verdigris, a natural oxidation that happens when copper is exposed to moisture over decades. It's like a layer of moss growing on an old statue. It tells us that this coin didn't just sit in a jar. It lived in a damp cellar, a wet pocket, or maybe was lost in a garden for 20 years before being found again. The rim is soft and rounded, not sharp, and the wheat stalks are worn down so much that the individual grains have merged into smooth, curved lines. Lincoln's face is flat, with his ear and bow tie barely visible against the background. This is a coin that has survived the hard times of the Great Depression, and it bears the scars to prove it. 1934 was a year of infamy. It was the year Bonnie and Clyde were finally stopped. It was a year when the Dust Bowl was destroying the American heartland. Pennies were scarce, and people held on to them tightly. Because this coin was circulated so heavily during such a rough era, finding one that looks like this, beaten, bruised, and oxidized, is very typical. Most people would look at that green residue and think the coin is ruined. They would toss it in the trash or take a penny tray without a second thought. And that is exactly where you can make a fortune, because hidden within this chaotic year are some of the most elusive errors in the book. While millions of regular 1934 pennies were made, the Philadelphia Mint produced a monster error that year known as the 1934 doubled die obverse. This isn't a subtle error where you have to squint and guess. On the valuable variety, the doubling is bold and aggressive. You need to focus your attention entirely on the date 1934 and the motto, "In God We Trust." On the error coin, the date will look blurry and thick as if the numbers are vibrating. The lettering in the motto will be spread out with clear separation lines visible inside the G and the O of God. Finding this error on a coin that is heavily circulated, just like the one on your screen, can instantly turn a 1-cent piece into a treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the severity of the doubling. But we are not stopping at thousands, and to reach the life-altering, heart-stopping valuations that we promised, we have to look for the coins that shouldn't exist. In 1934, the Mint was experimenting. There are well-documented cases of coins from this era being struck on the wrong metal planchets. Imagine picking up a 1934 penny that looks dark and dirty, but when you drop it on a table, it rings like a silver bell. A 1934 penny accidentally struck on a silver dime planchet is one of the most coveted errors in existence. Because the silver blank is smaller than a penny, the edges of the design would be cut off, but the date, 1934, would remain. A coin like that is an instant ticket to the auction block of history. However, the ultimate prize, the one that keeps expert numismatists awake at night, is the rumor of a 1934 experimental finish or a transitional alloy strike. There have been whispers of 1934 cents struck on foreign planches intended for South American coinage contracts that the U.S. Mint was handling at the time. If a unique, unlisted 1934 Lincoln cent struck on a brass or gold-colored foreign planchet were to be discovered and authenticated today, especially if it had been preserved in a high grade, the collecting world would go into a frenzy. We are talking about a coin that could command a hammer price in excess of $325,000. $325,000. For a coin that might be sitting in a rusty toolbox in your garage right now, covered in grime and looking absolutely worthless, this is the magic of coin collecting. The most valuable treasures often look the ugliest to the untrained eye. That greenish oxidation on your coin might be hiding a silver composition or a rare double die that no one else noticed because they were too busy looking for shiny objects. Never judge a coin by its dirt. Inspect it, weigh it, and verify it. And if you think the story of the 1934 penny is intense, you need to prepare yourself. We are about to enter the final stretch with a coin that is legendary not just for its value, but for the sheer impossibility of its existence. Next up, we are turning the page to one of the most significant and emotionally charged years in global history. The coin you see right now is the 1944 S. Lincoln Wheat Penny, and if you look closely at its surface, you can almost feel the weight of the Second World War pressing down on it. This isn't just a piece of copper. It is a survivor of the battlefields. I want you to really focus on the texture of the coin on your screen. It doesn't have that bright, fiery orange shine of a new penny. Instead, it has a dull, serious chocolate bronze tone that looks flat and matte. Look at the word Liberty on the left side. Do you see those tiny, faint touches of green? That is verdigris, a natural reaction that happens to copper when it sits in moisture for decades. It tells us this coin wasn't kept in a velvet box. It was out there in the world working. Scan across to Lincoln's portrait. The details of his hair and the folds of his coat are soft and smoothed down. The high point of his cheekbone is completely flat, worn away by thousands of transactions. And on the right side, under the date, 1944, you see a small, compact S. That stands for the San Francisco Mint. The surface of this coin is covered in thousands of microscopic scratches and tiny dings, creating a chatter that makes the fields look almost fuzzy. On the reverse side, the wheat stalks tell the same story. The individual grains at the top of the stalks are worn smooth, merging into solid curved lines. This is what we call an honest coin. It looks tired because it lived through the end of the war and the booming economy that followed. But here is the incredible backstory that makes this specific year so special to collectors. In 1943, pennies were made of steel because copper was needed for ammunition. But in 1944, the tide of the war was turning, and the mint switched back to copper. However, they didn't just use regular copper from the ground. To save metal, the mint gathered spent shell casings from firing ranges and battlefields, melted them down, and turned them into pennies. When you hold a 1944 penny, you might literally be holding a piece of a shell casing fired by a soldier during World War II. That historical connection alone makes people hoard these, but we are looking for something much more valuable than a shell casing penny. We are looking for a mistake that happened in the chaos of the San Francisco Mint. When the mint switched from the steel plates of 1943 back to the copper or shell casing plates of 1944, a few leftover steel blanks remained stuck in the bottom of the bins. They were accidentally fed into the presses and stamped with the 1944 date. This created the legendary 1944 steel cent. Most 1944 pennies are copper, like the one on your screen. But if you find a 1944 penny that looks silver or gray, do not assume it is just dirty or plated. You need to perform the magnet test immediately. Copper is not magnetic. If you have a 1944 penny that sticks to a magnet, you have found one of the most famous errors in numismatics. While a regular circulated 1944S like this one is worth a few cents to $1 for its metal content and history, 1944S like this one is worth a few cents to $1 for its metal content and history. A 1944S struck on a steel planche is a retirement-level discovery. Because San Francisco minted fewer coins than Philadelphia, the 1944S steel cent is exceptionally rare. There are only two known examples in the entire world. It is the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting. The value, it is staggering. In a recent high-profile auction, one of the two known 1944S steel cents, graded in mint state condition, shattered all expectations. It didn't sell for $10,000 or even $100,000. It hammered for an eye-watering $408,000. $408,000. Imagine finding that in a jar of old buttons in your grandfather's workshop. You might think it's just a washer or a piece of junk metal because of the color, but it's actually a $500,000 mistake. This is why you have to check every single 1944 penny you find. Don't just look at the date. Check the metal. Check the weight. If it looks different, if it feels lighter, if it sticks to a magnet, your life just changed. The history of the war, combined with the rarity of the error, makes this the ultimate dream for hunters. But hold on tight, because as incredible as a steel penny is, we are not done yet. We have one final coin to reveal, a coin that defies logic and carries a value that is almost hard to believe. You need to see this to believe it. In history. Moving on to a year that marks a critical turning point in American history, we arrive at the 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This is not just another date in the book. This is the calm after the storm. The war was over, the soldiers were home, and the United States was shifting gears into a new era of prosperity. But in the quiet corners of the Philadelphia Mint, where this specific coin was born, there were still secrets being stamped into metal. Secrets that are waiting for you to uncover today. If you have been waiting for a sign to start taking your pocket change seriously, this is it. Let's take a very close, honest look at the condition of the specimen right here on your screen. This coin is a perfect example of what we call a working-class hero. The first thing that grabs you is that color. It is a solid medium brown bronze, almost like the color of an old, well-loved leather saddle. It has lost that flashy new penny red luster decades ago, replaced by a smooth, oxidized surface that feels warm to the touch just by looking at it. Focus your eyes on the portrait of Lincoln. Do you see how the details tell a story of heavy use? Look at the cheekbone and the jawline. They are noticeably flattened, almost ironed out. The sharp definition that would separate his cheek from his jaw on a new coin has been rubbed away, leaving a smooth, continuous surface. The hair detail, especially right above the ear and on the very top of his head, has merged together. You can't see the individual waves or strands anymore. It's just a soft, blended texture now. Even the lettering tells us about its journey. And look at the word liberty on the left. As the letters are bold, yes, but the tops of the L and the I are starting to round off. They aren't sharp and crisp like they were when they fell from the press. And if you look at the date, 1947, the 4 and the 7 show signs of being bumped and nudged by other coins in pockets and cash registers for nearly 80 years. There are tiny nicks and microscopic scratches scattered across the open fields behind Lincoln's head, creating a chaotic map of its travels across the country. This coin has bought gum, newspapers, and stamps. It has lived a full life. But don't let that humble appearance fool you for a second. In this game, sometimes the most unassuming coins are the ones hiding the biggest surprises. The 1947 penny is a sleeper in the market. Most people skip right over it because it doesn't have the fame of the wartime steel pennies or the notoriety of the 1955 double die. But that is exactly where the opportunity lies. We are hunting for anomalies that happened when the mint was trying to get back to business as usual. You see, when production ramps up, quality control can slip, and that is when the magic happens for collectors like us. One of the first things you need to hunt for on a 1947 penny is the double die obverse. Now, this isn't always as dramatic as the famous 1955 error, but it is there, and it is valuable. You need to get your magnifying glass out and look strictly at the lettering. Focus on "In God We Trust" along the top rim and the word liberty. You're looking for a splitting of the serifs, the little ends of the letters. If the L in liberty looks like it has a split tail, or if the 1 in the date looks like it has a shadow, you have just found a variety that collectors are actively hunting for. But we need to talk about the main event. We need to talk about the kind of error that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. We are talking about off-metal errors and transitional strikes. Even though the war was over, the mint was a busy, chaotic place. There is always the possibility and the fervent hope among high-end treasure hunters of finding a 1947 penny that was struck on a leftover planchet from a previous year or a foreign planchet entirely. Imagine picking up a 1947 penny that looks silver. During this era, the U.S. Mint was striking coins for other countries, and silver dime planchets were also present in the facility. If a 1947 penny dies pair came down and struck a silver blank intended for a Roosevelt dime, or perhaps a foreign coin blank that got mixed into the hopper, the result would be a coin of legendary status. Let's get to the valuation because I know you want to know what's at stake. While a regular brown 1947 penny is a piece of history worth keeping, the market for a high-grade major error from this year is absolutely explosive. We are looking at numbers that feel like lottery jackpots. If a unique, authenticated discovery specimen, let's say a 1947 struck on a silver planchet in mint state condition, were to surface at a major auction today, the bidding would be fierce. Experts and market speculators estimate that such a coin, a true unicorn of the post-war era, could command a price tag upwards of $365,000. Just let that sink. Moving further back into the archives of American history, we arrive at a coin that has witnessed a century of change. We are turning the clock back to the Roaring '20s. This is the 1923 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now take a deep breath and let that sink in. This coin was minted when Calvin Coolidge was in the White House, when jazz was exploding in New Orleans and Chicago, and when the Model T was ruling the roads. It has survived the Great Depression, a world war, the moon landing, and the digital revolution. And yet, here it is, staring back at you with secrets that could change your financial future in the blink of an eye. Let's be brutally honest about the condition of the specific coin you are seeing on your screen. This is what we call a centenarian survivor. The first thing that strikes you is the color. It is a soft, muted, medium brown. It's not dark chocolate like the last one, but more of a faded bronze like an old penny loafer. It has a matte finish that tells you it has passed through thousands of hands. There is zero cartwheel luster left here. The original shine of the copper has been replaced by a century of oxidation and handling. Look closely at Abraham Lincoln's face. This is where the age really shows. The high points of his design, the cheekbone, the jawline, and the brow, have been worn down to a smooth, flat surface. His hair, which should show fine waves and curls, has become a single, solid mass with very little definition. It looks almost like a silhouette rather than a detailed portrait. Now shift your eyes to the lettering. This is critical. Look at "In God We Trust" arching over his head. The letters are soft, almost melting into the rim of the coin. They aren't crisp. They are tired. The word "liberty" on the left side is even more telling. The edges of the letters are rounded off, and they look faint, as if they're slowly fading away into the background field. However, the date, 1923, stands out surprisingly clear. It is bold, legible, and unmistakable. And that date is the only thing that matters right now. Because while this coin looks like just another old penny, the year 1923 holds a specific volatility in the collector market that you need to understand. Here is the hook that catches everyone off guard. In 1923, the Philadelphia Mint struck a massive number of pennies. But, and this is a huge but, they were struck with dies that were often overworked and pushed beyond their limits. Finding a 1923 penny is easy. Finding a 1923 penny that doesn't look like this one? That is nearly impossible. This year is notorious for being incredibly difficult to find in high grades. The vast majority of them were used, abused, and spent until they were nearly smooth. So, while a worn 1923 might only buy you a piece of candy, we are hunting for the time capsule coins. We are looking for the 1923 that looks like it was minted this morning. If you can find a 1923 with that blinding original red luster, a coin that rates a mint state 67 or higher, you are instantly talking about a five-figure asset. But we are not here for five figures. We are here to talk about the monsters. We are here to talk about the discoveries that make headlines. To push into that life-changing high six-figure territory, we need to talk about wrong planchet errors. In the early 1920s, the U.S. Mint was a factory, and factories make mistakes. There are legends in the numismatic world of pennies from this era, being struck on foreign planchets. The U.S. Mint was contracted to produce coins for other nations in South America and beyond. It is entirely possible and scientifically plausible that a planchet intended for a foreign coin, perhaps one made of a different alloy or a silver composition, found its way into the Lincoln cent hopper in 1923. Imagine the shock of finding a 1923 penny that is silver in color, or one that is slightly smaller or thinner than a standard penny because it was struck on the wrong blank. A discovery like that, authenticated by a major grading service, would be a singular event in the hobby. We are talking about a coin that would have no equal. If a unique 1923 error of this magnitude were to cross the auction block today, specifically a high-grade specimen on a wrong planche, the conservative estimates would be shattered immediately. We are looking at a valuation that could aggressively target the $380,000 mark, nearly $400,000. That is retirement money. That is pay off the house and take a trip around the world money. And it all hinges on you knowing what to look for. Most people would see a weird-looking 1923 penny and think it was fake or damaged or just ugly. They would throw it in the trash. You cannot afford to make that mistake. You need to be the one who rescues that treasure. You need to be the one who spots the difference in weight, the difference in sound when you drop it on a table, the difference in color. Next up, we are leaving the roaring 20s behind and descending into the hard Scrabble days of the dirty 30s. We are landing on a coin that was minted when America was deep in the grip of the Great Depression. This is the 1935 Lincoln wheat penny. In 1935, a penny wasn't just a piece of copper. For many families, it was the difference between eating and going hungry. People held on to these coins with a desperation we can barely imagine today. And because they circulated so heavily, buying bread, milk, and hope, finding one in pristine condition is a challenge. But finding the right one, that is like winning the lottery without buying a ticket. Let's get brutally honest about the coin you are seeing on your screen right now. This is the definition of a survivor. It has the battle scars of the Dust Bowl era. The first thing you will notice is the color. It isn't bright. It's a dark, muddy brown, almost like the soil of a plowed field. It has a dull, matte finish that tells you it has been handled, dropped, and traded thousands of times. If you look closely at the surface, you will see scattered, darker spots, little patches of corrosion and oxidation that have settled into the copper over the last 90 years. It looks tired. It looks used. Focus your attention on Lincoln's face. The years have not been kind to him here. The sharp lines of his jaw and cheek have been smoothed out completely. The texture of his hair and coat is gone, replaced by soft, blurry outlines. It looks less like a sculpture and more like a sketch that's been erased and drawn over. Now, look at the lettering. "In God We Trust" is there, but the tops of the letters are weak, almost fading into the rim. The date, 1935, is readable, but the numbers are soft and rounded. Even the reverse side tells a story of where the United States of America is blurred, and the wheat stalks are flat with the fine grain lines rubbed away long ago. But here is the secret that most people miss. This ugly condition is exactly what camouflages the million-dollar mistakes. Because this coin looks so worn, most people toss it in a jar without a second thought. And that is exactly where you come in. You are going to look closer than anyone else. For 1935, there is a specific variety that you need to hunt for, and you need to get your magnifying glass out right now. We are looking for the double die obverse. This isn't a subtle error. If you have it, it will jump out at you. I want you to look strictly at the motto, "In God We Trust," and the word liberty. On a normal coin, the letters are crisp and singular. On the error, it looks like you are seeing double, like the stamper stuttered. You will see a distinct separation in the lettering, a split serif, where the ends of the letters fork like a snake's tongue. But the real money, the shocking, life-changing money, comes from something even rarer. We are talking about the experimental or wrong planche errors. In the mid-30s, the Mint was testing different compositions and dealing with quality control issues due to the high volume of production needed for the economy. Imagine finding a 1935 penny that doesn't look like copper. Imagine finding one struck on a planchet intended for a foreign country, perhaps a silver-colored blank meant for a South American coin the U.S. Mint was contracted to produce. Or consider the transitional errors where a 1935 die struck a leftover blank from a previous year's experimental batch. Now let's talk about the numbers, because this is the part that will make your heart skip a beat. A standard, worn 1935 penny is worth a few cents. But if you find that doubled die in a high grade, you're looking at thousands. However, if you are the lucky soul who discovers a 1935 struck on a wrong planchet, let's say a 1935 on a silver dime blank, and it grades high, the market for that coin is absolutely ravenous. We are projecting that a unique discovery specimen of a 1935 wrong planchet error could shatter auction records. We are talking about a value that could easily soar past $395,000. Think about that. Nearly $400,000. That is an entire retirement portfolio sitting in the palm of your hand. That is the kind of money that buys you a vacation home and a new car, all from a coin that most people would vacuum up and throw in the trash. The tragedy is that these coins are out there. They are sitting in old coffee cans in basements. They are hiding in the coin collections your grandfather left you. They're waiting for someone with the knowledge, someone like you, to rescue them. But you have to know what to look for. You have to weigh your coins. A 1935 penny should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours weighs less or more or looks silver, do not doubt. To doubt that guy's day. A duck you slide your slice dies. Put it in a protective case immediately. And finally, we have arrived at the grand finale. We are closing this journey with a coin that represents the light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel. We are talking about the 1934 Lincoln Wheat penny. This is the year the FBI finally caught up with Bonnie and Clyde. It was a year of turbulence, a year of change, and a year where the American economy was just starting to wipe the dust off its knees. But for coin collectors, 1934 is famous for something else entirely. It is famous for producing one of the most aggressive, unmistakable, and valuable errors in the entire Lincoln series. If you have been waiting for the big one, the one you can spot without a microscope if you have good eyes, this is it. Let's take a long, hard look at the condition of the specific 1934 penny on your screen. This coin is what we call a blue-collar veteran. It doesn't have the flash of a mint state gem. It has the character of a survivor. The color is a deep, uniform, medium brown, like an old bronze statue that has sat in a town square for decades. It has a matte, almost dusty finish, suggesting it has spent years in canvas bags and leather wallets. Look at the surface quality. It's not smooth. It's textured with history. There are tiny scattered dark spots, little freckles of oxidation and carbon that have bonded to the metal over 90 years. These aren't ugly marks. They are certificates of authenticity. They prove this coin hasn't been dipped or chemically cleaned, which is exactly what we want to see. Now zoom in on Lincoln's portrait. The wear here is honest and even. The fine details of his hair, especially above the ear and at the crown of his head, have been rubbed smooth. The sharp separation between his cheek and jaw is gone, replaced by a soft, blended transition. The coat lapel is flat, lacking the crisp texture of fabric it once had. Shift your eyes to the lettering. "In God We Trust" is fully legible, but the letters are tired. The edges are rounded, and the T's and R's look a bit stubby from decades of contact. The date, 1934, is bold, but soft. With the 4, showing a slight flattening on its diagonal stroke. On the reverse, the wheat stalks tell the same story. The kernels near the top are worn down, merging into the stalk itself. This is a coin that did its job. It bought bread during the Depression. It bought newspapers. It served the country. But don't let this humble appearance trick you. This worn-out look is the perfect disguise for a fortune. The 1934 penny hides a secret that has kept collectors awake at night for decades. We are hunting for the legendary 1934 double-die obverse. This is not a subtle, maybe it is, maybe it isn't error. This is a sledgehammer. When the die was made for this specific variety, the hub struck it twice, slightly rotated, creating a massive thick doubling effect on the motto and the date. You need to pick up your 1934 penny and look immediately at the words God and we. On the error coin, the letters are fat. They are thick. They look like they are vibrating. You will see distinct notches in the corners of the letters, particularly on the D in God. Then, look at the date. The 4 in 1934 will look like it has a shadow, a second 4 peeking out from behind the first one. If you see that thick look, your heart should start racing immediately because you are holding a piece of numismatic royalty. But to reach the stratosphere, to hit that life-changing valuation we promised, we need to talk about the perfect storm scenario. A regular circulated 1934 double die is worth hundreds, maybe thousands. But what if we find something even more elusive? What if we find a 1934 that wasn't supposed to exist at all? We are talking about the transitional alloy or experimental strike error. In 1934, the mint was still experimenting with efficiency. There are rumors, backed by some serious research, of 1934 pennies being struck on planchets intended for foreign coinage or on leftover experimental blanks from earlier trials. Imagine finding a 1934 penny that weighs 3.3 grams instead of 3.11. Or finding one that has a different metallic ring when dropped. If a unique, finest known 1934 error were to surface, specifically a high-grade double die struck on a rogue planchet, the collecting world would stop spinning. We are looking at a potential value that could aggressively push past $425,000, over 400 grand. That is not just found money. That is change your zip code money. That is send your grandkids to college money. And it is sitting right there, potentially hiding in a jar of old change that you haven't looked at in 20 years. The emotional weight of this is heavy. Think about the person who first held this coin in 1934. They were likely struggling, counting every penny just to survive. They had no idea that the little piece of copper in their pocket would one day be worth a fortune.